Hi, my name is Alex Duselier-Muller. This is Dressage Schooling Exercises, Episode 6, Canter Transitions on the Yin Yang. And you all will recognize Fern. She's my 6-year-old saddlebred Tennessee Walker mare. This exercise this week is designed to improve canter transitions. It works to help the horse's longitudinal suppleness and connection, and therefore produces more supple canter transitions. Fern probably wasn't my first choice for this exercise, but all my horses seem to have gone lame this week, so Fern is up. This exercise is appropriate for intro level riders and up. It's a pretty good warm-up for upper level riders, but I think the benefit really lies in coordinating the horse's responsiveness with the rider's aids. It tends to make stiff horses more supple, both longitudinally, as I mentioned, but also laterally, because the turn in the exercise makes the horse bend both ways. It's a bit of a rider exercise as well. It makes the rider really plan ahead, because especially if they're a beginner or if the horse is a little bit green, this exercise comes up extremely fast. So it's really good for rider coordination of the aids. So we'll move on into the exercise right now. So the baseline of this exercise is a 20-meter circle. You will do, I can't remember what I started with. Okay, so we started with an S turn between E and B. So half of a 10-meter circle left to half of a 10-meter circle right. As you finish the half a 10-meter circle right, you're going to leg yield out a step and pick up canter. And then canter half of a 20-meter circle, do a down transition, and then immediately into an S turn again. So essentially it's an S turn to half of a 20-meter circle in canter. Fern gives me a little bit of trouble in this because she is super smart, and I actually had done this exercise a few times before I started videoing this, and she already knows it. So she wants to canter quite early. So several times throughout this exercise, I add in a full 20-meter circle to prevent her from anticipating. So just so you understand, I'm going to explain it one more time. So it's an S turn, half of a 10-meter to half of a 10-meter. As you touch the rail, you press out one step and canter. And people tend to get lost on this exercise quite a bit. I find it quite straightforward, but I think because it comes up so fast, people get really lost. If that comes up too fast for you, she keeps anticipating, gets a little spanking, gets in trouble. We've talked about her being a red mare before. If this exercise comes up too fast for you, do a full 20-meter circle instead of half. I had started that way with Fern, but it just, her canter's pretty naturally collected, and it took me like a year to get around the circle. So I went immediately to the slightly harder version, but if that's too hard, totally go and do the full 20-meter circle. At the beginning of this exercise, Fern is a little bit tight. She's thinking really hard about what we're doing, but she's not relaxed through her back. That was slightly better, actually. Poor Fern actually had 2 weeks off and then got pulled out of the field to do this. I'm in the middle of changing barns, so things have been a little bit hectic, and I was gone at regionals for a week. Here, I think she's starting to relax. Yeah, I like that better. So a few minutes into this exercise, she starts to find her rhythm. If your horse is too busy anticipating to find the rhythm, feel free to do like a full 10-meter circle or a circle and a half, or stay on the 10-meter circle for as long as you need to until they quit anticipating that canter transition and just lock into the trot rhythm. These exercises with the canter transitions are quite helpful for canter transitions, and I tell my riders all the time that a horse anticipating is not the worst thing ever. It's actually one of the better ways to train a good transition. But once your horse has a good transition, You don't obviously want them to anticipate so much that they're doing it completely on their own. I'm just going to explain for 1 second longer what I mean by it's a good way to train the transition. So if your horse doesn't have a clear canter aid, but they're expecting the canter in that spot, it's a really good way to help them associate the canter transition with a canter aid. Feel free to comment if that doesn't make sense, and I'll explain further. Fern quite likes the canter, so you'll see me add in some 10-meter circles here. So there are moments where I like her trot quite a bit, where she locks into the rhythm, her neck gets a little bit lower, she gets more through. Her canter transitions tend to be just a little bit locked in the back and more upright rather than ground covering. I think there are a few in this video that I like a lot, but most of them, even though she stays round through the neck, I can feel her get a little stiff under my seat. Like, I think you can see there how she pops up in the transition rather than lifting up through her shoulders. She kind of like tightens the under neck muscle and gets a bit hollow. So as this exercise goes on, what I would like to see from her is that she drops the neck a little bit lower. Like that. I liked a tiny bit more. I still don't love it, but I think she did a better job of staying more through, and maybe I shouldn't phrase it like that. The exercise helped me help her stay a little bit more through. Still anticipating a little bit here. Still a little bit tight in the up transition. So I do think I like this trot a little bit more, though. She looks like she's finding a rhythm and moving through her back. I liked that transition actually quite a bit more. So instead of like lifting herself artificially into canter by tightening her under neck, she more used her core and like lifted up through her shoulders. Hopefully she'll do it again. I don't remember what happened here. Yeah, so that was a much better transition. So as we're repeating, I'm liking what's happening to these transitions. She kind of quit trying to guess. I'm sure she will again because she's Fern, but she quit trying to guess what we were doing and just kind of listened to my body and made an attempt to do things the way I'd requested. Yeah, and I like that actually a lot more. I'm frequently having to tap her the second canter step. She picks up the canter nicely, and then instead of covering ground, she hops straight up. So obviously, as I'm writing this, I found that to be successful, which I love when I agree with myself when I make these videos. But I told you I liked the last 3 transitions, and obviously as I wrote it, I liked them also because I wrote out of the exercise. So here I just play with the trot a little bit. I think if you've been watching this series, you kind of get my method by now. I play with the exercise, and when I feel that it's successful, or if I feel like the horse is getting frustrated and I need to move on, I ride out of the exercise. I don't want to keep drilling it to the point that the horse gets really frustrated with it. So I like that Fern has a little more swing through her back here than she did before. I think I test out her canter transition here, maybe. Yeah, okay. So I quite like that canter transition as well. So I think the exercise was fairly successful for her. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a comment. Feel free to ask questions, and as always, share. Thanks so much.